Hi guys, welcome back to my video. I am doing the Pike County massacres. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a very long time. And I left off the first video with the discovery of the 8 members of the Roden family murdered. Hannah Mae had just had baby Kylie 5 days before she was shot 2 times in the head, and her body was described propped up so baby Kylie could still nurse off of her corpse. Her father, Chris Sr., was shot 9 times. Her mother was shot 5 times, all in the head. Her little brother was shot 4 times. Her older brother was shot 3 times in the head, and 2 of them were a contact wound, so the gun was directly pushed up against the head. His fiance was shot 5 times in the head while her 6-month-old son was sleeping between her and her fiance, who was shot 3 times in the head. So they just left the baby right in the middle. And they left their 3-year-old running around the house. The uncle was shot 1 time in the eye, and her, I guess, second cousin, it's her dad's cousin, was shot 3 times in the head. And all of these were in 4 separate locations. So, who killed this family? What and why? So, if you have not watched my first video, please go back and watch it. That recap was just like a little bit of it. You really need to get the backstory on all of it. So let's start off by talking about the children. So there were 3 children left alive at a crime scene after 8 people were murdered. There was a 6-month-old baby who was left between their mother and their father. The 3-year-old, who was the older brother of that baby, who was walking around saying that daddy is playing zombie, and talking about when he picks up his dad's hand, it falls directly back down and he's just playing and being silly. Well, it turns out the father was dead, and that is absolutely heartbreaking. And baby Kylie, who was left in a position where she could still nurse off her mother's corpse, but that's not really how things work. So when morning came about, Kylie was screaming her head off because she was severely dehydrated, very hungry. And she was discovered by her uncle, James, who called his wife, April, to come get her while he flagged it on the police officers. April is at the hospital with baby Kylie at this point. As April's at the hospital, Jake, Hannah's ex-boyfriend, arrives to the hospital asking how Kylie is, and he's so extremely worried. And he asks the hospital staff if he could take Kylie home, and the hospital staff says no. And Jake doesn't take the word no very well. Jake and his family attends the funeral of, his baby mama and her entire family that was murdered. They go to the funeral and they look kind of beat up. So Billy Wagner, the one that Hannah was really scared of, had a very bruised up face. At the funeral, Angela, which is Jake's mother, is telling everybody how Hannah was just like a daughter to her, and she is so tore up. Jake is telling everybody that he was still fighting for this relationship for Hannah, that they had split up because he was working too much, and he wanted Hannah to be a stay-at-home mom to Sophia, but Hannah really wanted to go to college, and they split up just because their difference in the futures that they wanted. Not because, like, Jake was telling the whole town that he was going to murder Hannah. So 1 week after the murder, Jake files for custody of Kylie and Sophia. And when he handed these papers over 1 week after Hannah Mae was shot dead, her signature was on it, saying that if anything were to happen to her, Jake gets custody. And as I said in my last video, Hannah said over her dead body, Hannah didn't sign a damn thing. And the fact that it was notarized makes it even more a little weird. But let's talk about the theories of what happened to Hannah and her family. So one theory was that it was a cockfighting ring and something went wrong and the whole family gets murdered. Another theory is that it was the drug cartel because on April 23rd, 5th, 3 days after the murder, when the police came to investigate, there was a lot of marijuana growing. And this was a big headache for me because Mike DeWine was Attorney General at the time. And he just goes on TV and was like, yeah, it was the drug cartel. But it wasn't the drug cartel. So what is he talking about? Why is he making those statements? Another theory was that it was road rage because Chris Jr., I said he was a little bit of the wild child. He loved his cars. Well, he got a little bit of road rage. And I guess like there was some honking, cuss words, you know, middle fingers flying up. Some like Facebook messages were exchanged. None of those theories are true. They're just theories. By October 2016, all those theories get thrown out the door because it had to have been somebody local. Because somebody had to know their work schedule. Somebody had to know when Dana Roden was getting home and the layout of her new trailer that she had just bought. All of the security footage around the, like I said, it was like a big plot of land, and there was security cameras everywhere. And every single one of them had like the memory taken out of it. And there were so many dogs, especially Frankie's dog, who was extremely aggressive around people that he did not know. So whoever went in the house had to have known Frankie's dog and known where these security cameras were. By May 2017, Jake Wagner gets named as a suspect. And the police go and search the house, and they take a small trailer, a couple guns, like a 22 and a Glock 40 were taken off of the property, but they were buried in like 5-gallon buckets of concrete. Little suspicious. So let's talk about the Wagners just a little bit. The Wagners were a scheming little family. They were always getting into some type of trouble, and they loved their life of crime. So they had like these family meetings, which isn't too weird, but even though their children were adult now and their children had children, they still had to do everything their parents, Angela and Billy, said. Billy, the father, was described as very cold and just like a lot of negative energy. And he kind of freaked a lot of people in town out, but people who actually knew Billy knew that he was so useless and lazy, and he was always just running his fat mouth. He conditioned his children into not trusting law enforcement, and if they needed to call the police, they needed to just take it in their own hands. He would rob vending machines and semis, and he especially wanted Jake to rob the vending machines and semis with him because he said that his older son, George, was just too slow. Angela was described as a very loving mother, and not just to her own children, but to all the children. If she encountered a child, she wanted to take care of that child. She had a very nurturing personality, besides to her own kids. She was very controlling and judgmental to her kids, and she would often threaten to take custody of her kids away from them. And George Wagner, the older child, he was just kind of described as the same as his dad, just very cold, quiet, and full of negative energy. Jake was described as an excellent father, very protective over Sophia and wanting the best for her. And people would often see Jake playing with Sophia and his nephew out in the front yard. Like, he was always hands-on, always wanting to be around his kids. So June 29th, 2017, Mike DeWine puts out a public statement saying that he needs all the information he can get about the Wagner family. The Wagners took this as, you know that SpongeBob meme? They're like, yep, time to get out of here. So they moved to Alaska. And in Alaska, almost immediately after they get there, George Wagner changes his profile picture to this wolf. As you can see, the wolf is missing an eyeball. And then Angela comments and says, really? Dot, 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 question mark. And then George comments back and says, what, you don't like it? Almost like it's an inside joke, but then George deletes the comments. And I wish I would have just screenshotted all of that before he deleted the comment, but I saw it with my own eyes. And that's just like a little like tip of advice for everybody. If you see something interesting, screenshot it immediately. While they're in Alaska, Jake gets married to a lady by the name of Beth Ann. And Beth Ann had no idea what she was getting herself into. Like, bless her heart. Like, after they get married, she's like iffy about the whole thing. And then Jake's like, we're moving to Ohio. She's like, why are we moving back to Ohio? What? And they move back to Ohio. Angela, Jake, Beth Ann, Sophia, George, and George's son, Bovine, move into a house by Angela's parents. And then Billy moves back home with his mom at like the Flying W farm. The 3-bedroom house that Angela and the kids move into. But there's Angela's bedroom. And she shares that bedroom with Bovine. And then there's a pink bedroom and a blue bedroom. So if like children's services came to investigate, she would be like, oh, this is Sophia's room and this is Bovine's room. So Jake got the pink bedroom with Sophia and Beth Ann. And they're all in one bedroom. And then George just gets the blue bedroom all to himself because Bovine sleeps with Angela. I don't know. It's a weird family. Angela like just starts hating Beth Ann. I don't know why exactly, but she starts really disliking Beth Ann. And she starts saying stuff like Beth Ann gave the kids food poisoning. The kids weren't vomiting and they didn't have diarrhea, so where are you getting this food poisoning from? And then she started saying that like she caught Beth Ann molesting Sophia, which was not true at all. So they had a family meeting. And Jake said, well, if you molest my kid, we're going to tie you up in the barn, beat you with a baseball bat, and then set the barn on fire. So Beth Ann is like, what? Like, I'm telling you, she had no idea what she was getting herself into. And the fact that they move into a 3-bedroom house is kind of annoying because, like, she's married and he has a kid. Like, she thought that they were going to have their own life. But obviously that can't happen with the Wagners. Then Jake is like, you need to start writing out your feelings. And Beth Ann was like, oh, you know, okay, like, this sounds all right. So she starts like writing letters to her grandfather who had passed away. And she is writing out her feelings. But Jake is not a like sentimental feelings type guy because he reads all these journal entries and then like he's showing his mother, and poor Beth Ann is writing about how she hates Angela and how Angela makes up all these lies about her and she just wants a life of her own without Angela. And like, the family's not quite sane. Beth Ann is starting to realize that her life is in danger. So she calls her father, who lives in Texas, and she plans out this really clever way to escape. So she goes shopping to Walmart with Angela, and she changes her clothes in the dressing room at Walmart. Like, I don't really know, like, if she said that she was, like, gonna go look at something while Angela's looking at something else. So, like, she slips away. But she changes her clothes, and then she slips out the side door of Walmart where, like, the tire section is. And her dad is in the car waiting for her. And she jumps in the car, and they speed away. Well, the police have been watching the Wagners ever since they came back to Ohio. So the police see this, and they're like, what is she doing? And they follow her dad and her. And then they have a pit stop off the highway. And the police come and question her. And she tells them, like, this family is insane. I'm trying to get out of here. Like, don't tell them where I'm at. November 13th, 2018. The authorities released a statement that they have arrested 6 members of the Wagner family. They arrested Billy, the father, Angela, the mother, George, the older brother, Jake, Hannah Mae's baby dad and long-term boyfriend that they had recently split up, Angela's mother, Rita, and Billy's mother, Federica.